Have you ever wondered what happens when love, secrets, and betrayal collide in a relationship? What if the person you trust the most has been hiding something right under your nose? Imagine discovering that the person you love has been leading a double life, and everything you thought you knew about them and your relationship is suddenly up for questioning. Sounds intense, doesn't it? In this video, we're diving into a story that explores these emotions at their most intense: David and Emily's complicated relationship. On the surface, their love story seems like a second chance at happiness, a fresh start after past heartbreaks. But beneath the smiles, the laughter, and the romantic moments, there's a darker side that David has yet to uncover. Hidden secrets, buried desires, and a web of lies slowly begin to unravel, threatening to shatter everything David thought was solid. Why should you stick with us until the very end? Because this story isn't just about love, it's about trust, loyalty, and the dangerous consequences of hidden desires. We'll walk you through the subtle warning signs, the moments where something doesn't quite feel right, and how our intuition often knows when something is off long before the truth is fully revealed. You'll see how deception can slip into even the most seemingly perfect relationships, and how one choice, one moment, can turn everything upside down. Stay with us, because what happens next is a twist you won't see coming. By the end of this video, you'll have a deeper understanding of how complex relationships can be and the emotional roller coaster that comes when reality finally breaks through the surface. We'll also reveal the shocking turning point in this story, one that no one saw coming. Don't miss out. You'll want to know how this all plays out. Keep watching. If you're not subscribed yet, I highly recommend subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you never miss another video. Your support means the world to me, and if you enjoyed this video, help me continue sharing these important stories by liking them and sharing them with your friends. From the very first days of their relationship, David couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. It wasn't immediately obvious, but there were subtle signs, little shifts in Emily's behavior, that whispered of a deeper unease. Whenever intimacy was brought up, Emily would retreat, almost as though a veil of discomfort descended over her. She would offer excuses that, on the surface, seemed perfectly rational and respectful, nothing too out of the ordinary. But David, being deeply attuned to her every nuance, couldn't ignore the suspicion that lingered in the pit of his stomach. He suggested new ways to rekindle the excitement in their connection, to breathe life into their relationship, but each time, Emily would respond with a polite, almost wistful smile, her voice soft with hesitation as she asked him to understand her need for space. David, always the gentleman, respected her boundaries with unwavering patience. But beneath the surface of his understanding, a storm was beginning to brew. His heart, ever hopeful yet increasingly restless, screamed that something wasn't quite right, that this surface-level politeness veiled a truth far darker and more painful. He didn't want to force her, to push her into something she wasn't ready for, but his instincts, sharp and unyielding, were ringing in his ears, as if a siren was blaring in the distance, warning him that there was a storm ahead. Unbeknownst to David, Emily was carrying a heavy secret, one she guarded with a fierceness that terrified her. The love she felt for him was real and sincere, yet it lacked something vital, something that kept her yearning for more, something that she couldn't quite put into words. The warmth of their time together, the affection they shared, was undeniable, but there was a longing deep within her, a void that refused to be filled by the life they had built. She tried to ignore it, tried to convince herself that it was a passing feeling, but as days turned into weeks, the emptiness only grew. And then there was Mark. She met him by chance, a charismatic stranger whose presence sparked something in her that she hadn't felt in years. He was everything that David wasn't: spontaneous, electrifying, with a raw energy that coursed through her like a current of life. What began as an innocent flirtation, a harmless escape from her growing dissatisfaction, quickly spiraled into something deeper, more dangerous. With Mark, Emily discovered a side of herself that had long been suppressed, a side that reveled in the thrill of intimacy, in exploring desires that she had pushed down out of loyalty to David. Mark made her feel alive in a way that David never could. His touch, his words, the way he saw her, not as a companion to nurture, but as a woman to be desired, to be understood on an entirely different level. Every encounter with him was a rush of excitement, a delicious liberation from the confines of the life she had settled into with David. With him, she could be someone entirely new, someone who was free from the expectations and boundaries that had come to define her relationship with David. She didn't want to feel guilty. She told herself that it wasn't her fault, David couldn't give her what Mark could. He couldn't make her feel the way Mark made her feel. She felt alive, for the first time in what felt like forever. David, too, could feel the shift. Emily's behavior became more distant, more elusive, as if she were slipping through his fingers like sand. The emotional walls she had once let down so freely were now high and impenetrable. The conversations that once flowed with ease now felt like tedious, forced exchanges. Her eyes, once filled with warmth and affection, seemed to glance past him, never fully meeting his. The intimacy that had once been their bond began to fade into an uncomfortable silence. At first, David tried to convince himself that it was just a phase, a temporary withdrawal due to stress or external pressures. But the nagging doubt, that deep, unsettling feeling in his gut, refused to go away. He began to wonder if the age gap between them had somehow created a chasm that he couldn't see, some invisible rift that kept them from connecting on a deeper level. Was it his immaturity? Was it the fact that, despite his best efforts, he could never truly understand the complexities of her needs, her desires, her longings? The thought tortured him, gnawing at his confidence. The more he tried to ignore it, the stronger the doubt grew, like a dark cloud looming over him, casting a shadow on every tender moment, every shared glance. He wanted to believe that things would return to normal, that the woman he had fallen in love with was still there, but deep inside, David knew that something had irrevocably changed, and whatever it wasn't something he was ready to face. While David fought to understand the confusing disarray of his emotions, Emily's relationship with Mark continued to evolve, each moment drawing her further away from the life she had built with him. Every time she was with Mark, it felt as though her soul was igniting in ways she hadn't thought possible, her body trembling under the weight of desires she'd long suppressed. Mark wasn't just a lover, he was a storm that swept through her, pulling her into his orbit with a force she could neither explain nor deny. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. His boldness, his audacity to push her boundaries without a hint of hesitation, made everything David had once done seem shallow, even empty. Mark didn't just touch her body, he reached deep inside her, unlocking parts of herself she had forgotten existed. Their connection was a raging fire, an all-consuming force that left her breathless, lost in the heat of the moment. And Emily, despite the guilt that clawed at her heart, couldn't help but wonder if she had been living in a suffocating lie all this time. With Mark, she felt vibrant, like she was finally being seen, truly seen, for the woman she had always been. But every time she returned to David, a crushing weight of shame settled over her, heavy and unbearable, like a stone lodged deep in her chest. She loved David. She knew she did. But it was a different kind of love now, one that had been dulled by time, by routine, by the ever-growing distance between them. She had always trusted that love would be enough, but now, with Mark's intoxicating presence in her life, it was clear that it was no longer enough. David didn't deserve this. He had given her everything, his trust, his devotion, his heart. But Emily couldn't ignore the pull, the magnetic force that Mark seemed to exert on her, drawing her to him over and over again. It was a craving, a hunger that she couldn't satisfy within the confines of her relationship with David. The more she gave in to Mark, the more her guilt grew. Each touch, each whispered word, each stolen moment with him felt like a betrayal. Yet she couldn't stop. With Mark, she felt free in a way she hadn't in years. She was a different version of herself, one who was confident, wild, and unafraid to chase the things that made her feel alive. But when she was with David, she felt like a stranger in her own life. The person she used to be, the woman who had once been so certain of the future she shared with David, now felt like a distant memory. And the more Emily tried to reconcile these two versions of herself, the more it seemed impossible to find harmony between them. The breaking point, as inevitable as it was, came one quiet evening when David, still blissfully unaware of the widening chasm between them, suggested something intimate. It was supposed to be a simple request, an exploration of new territory in their shared life, a way to rekindle the spark they once had. But when he voiced it, Emily's world froze. The words hit her like a physical blow, and her heart sank into her stomach. It wasn't that the act itself was wrong. It was the sickening realization that she had already shared it with Mark. With him, it had been an exhilarating release, a moment of pure connection that made her feel untouchable, invincible. With David, however, it felt utterly misplaced, as if the very idea of such intimacy between them was wrong, like a puzzle piece that simply didn't fit. It wasn't just discomfort, it was the cruel contrast between the two men. With Mark, everything felt effortless and passionate, as if they were in sync with the universe. With David, it was as though the years of their relationship had molded them into something they could no longer be. A safe, familiar pair, yes, but one that had grown tired, static, and disconnected from the wildness of true desire. What she shared with Mark felt alive, fresh, and full of promise, whereas, with David, it felt like a hollow echo of something they had once been but could never return to. Emily's rejection was swift, her voice trembling with a nervousness she couldn't conceal. She tried to keep it neutral, explaining that she simply didn't feel comfortable, but the truth was far more complex, far more devastating. The discomfort wasn't just in the act itself, it was in the realization that her emotional self had already traveled so far down a different path, one where she no longer felt capable of returning to the life she had known with David. She had already crossed that threshold with Mark, and it had felt like a revelation, a rediscovery of a part of herself she had locked away long ago. With Mark, she felt seen, alive, and desired. With David, the desire felt like an obligation, one she had long since grown numb to. At that moment, Emily knew she was standing on the edge of a precipice, and there was no going back. As the days passed, David's instincts began to sharpen. He noticed the subtle shifts in Emily's behavior, the little things that didn't quite add up. She'd become more distant, her eyes glazing over when he spoke to her. She'd seem preoccupied, distracted, lost in thought as she stared at her phone, fingers twitching nervously over the screen. The hours she'd claimed to be busy no longer made sense, and her excuses, once so believable, were starting to fray at the edges. He tried to convince himself that Emily was simply a private person, someone who valued her space. But deep down, a cold knot of unease began to take root in his stomach, growing with each passing day. The nagging feeling that something wasn't right gnawed at him relentlessly, making it impossible to ignore. He knew that he couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. David's heart screamed for answers, for the truth, even if it meant shattering the fragile illusion of their life together. The weight of his suspicions pressed down on him like a vice, and he knew that no matter the cost, he needed to know the truth. Every part of him wanted to trust Emily, to believe in the bond they had once shared. But the evidence was piling up, and David could no longer deny the sinking feeling that something had been irreparably broken between them. One dark, quiet night, as Emily lay deep in the embrace of sleep, her breathing steady and serene, David wrestled with a storm raging inside him. His pulse thundered in his ears, each beat echoing the frantic need for answers. He couldn't escape the nagging feeling clawing at him, a sense of unease that had only grown in the weeks prior. The weight of his doubts bore down on him with suffocating intensity, and in that moment, the temptation to uncover the truth overpowered everything else. His hands trembled as he reached for Emily's phone, the cold metal of the device feeling like a confession in itself. Every inch of him screamed with guilt, but the hunger for clarity was far stronger. With bated breath, David unlocked the phone. His heart nearly stopped as his eyes fell upon the screen. What he saw was worse than anything he had ever feared. There it was, explicit, intimate, raw messages between Emily and Mark. Each word felt like a dagger being driven into his chest. The messages were brimming with passionate declarations, love, and longing. Words that had once belonged to him, now tainted with someone else's affection. His worst nightmare was no longer a shadow, but a vivid, brutal reality. His breath came in short gasps, his mind reeling in disbelief. The crushing weight of betrayal slammed into him, leaving him gasping for air. It felt as though the very air around him had turned thick, suffocating, and with it, the life he thought he had built with Emily shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. He had given her everything, his love, his trust, his soul, and yet, in the blink of an eye, that love had been brutally tossed aside. The rawness of the betrayal cut deeper than any wound he had ever known. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the sheer magnitude of the deception. The truth, now glaring and undeniable, tore apart the fabric of his existence, unraveling every dream he had carefully woven with her. For David, the pain was not just emotional, it was visceral, as though the world itself had spun out of control. The woman he had loved so deeply, the woman he had thought he knew, was now a stranger. A lie. The following morning, as the weight of the truth continued to crush him, David stood face to face with Emily. His heart was a battlefield, torn between the raw anger of betrayal and the excruciating ache of heartbreak. He held up the phone, the messages on the screen as damning as a confession in itself. His voice, once steady and confident, now trembled with a pain so deep it seemed to shake his very foundation. "Why?" was all he could manage, his throat tight with emotion. Emily, caught in the web of her lies, initially denied it, her words a fragile defense that crumbled under the weight of the evidence. As the truth settled over her like an unbearable shroud, the facade she had so carefully maintained collapsed. Her eyes filled with tears, and she broke down in front of him. Her confession came out in a torrent, soaked with guilt and regret. She admitted that while she had loved the security and warmth David provided, she had found something she couldn't resist in Mark. Something that had ignited a fire inside her, a passion that David, in all his devotion, had never sparked. David stood motionless, as though time itself had stopped. The silence between them stretched out like an endless chasm, each second a cruel reminder of everything he had lost. His mind spun, unable to fully comprehend the enormity of what he had just learned. Was he angry? Yes. Was he heartbroken? Absolutely. But most of all, he was humiliated. The life they had shared, the promises they had made to each other, all felt like cruel jokes now. Emily's betrayal was not just a personal wound. It felt like a betrayal of everything David had ever believed in. His love, his loyalty, had been an illusion. The pillars of their relationship had crumbled beneath the weight of her infidelity. 4 weeks after that day, David withdrew from the world. He became a shadow of the person he once was, suffocated by a profound grief that consumed every part of him. His thoughts spiraled, drowning in self-doubt and regret. How had he missed the signs? How had he been so blind to the truth, so willing to ignore the cracks in their relationship? Every day, the weight of his questions pressed down on him, like an anchor pulling him deeper into the darkness of his mind. But, as the days turned into weeks, and the sharp edges of the pain began to dull, a quiet realization began to grow within him. This devastation would not define him. He had known loss before, and somehow, despite the depth of this betrayal, he understood that life would move on. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, David began to find the strength to rise again. The storm within him was far from over, but the fragments of his shattered heart started to piece together. His healing would not be quick or easy, but he knew now that he could survive this. He could rebuild. The pain, though excruciating, had planted a seed of resilience within him, and he would find the courage to move forward, no matter how long it took. It was in a small, humble support group for older adults that David first glimpsed a fragile spark of hope. Surrounded by individuals who had each endured their own deep, soul-wrenching losses, he witnessed the incredible resilience of those who, despite the weight of their pain, had managed to pick up the broken pieces of their lives and rebuild something beautiful. Their stories, raw, unvarnished, and brimming with emotion, spoke to him in ways he hadn't thought possible. In this group, David's world shifted, and it was here that he met Carol. Carol, a 68-year-old woman with a heart as vast and warm as the sun, instantly captivated David. There was something in her eyes, a quiet depth of wisdom that spoke of a life lived with courage, compassion, and an unshakable belief in second chances. Her laugh was a balm to his weary soul, and her words were always carefully chosen, filled with insights that seemed to resonate deeply with the very core of who he was. Over time, their friendship blossomed, weaving a delicate thread of connection that slowly, but surely, transformed into something much more profound. With each passing conversation, with every shared silence, David felt his heart slowly mending. Carol became his anchor, her presence a steady reassurance that perhaps, just perhaps, he could begin again, no matter how many times life had knocked him down. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. But while David was slowly embracing the warmth of new beginnings, Emily, the woman from his past, was left to face the painful consequences of her choices. Mark, despite the searing intensity of their affair, had never meant for it to become something permanent. He had never offered her the kind of love and commitment she longed for. When he ended their passionate, tumultuous relationship without so much as a backward glance, Emily was consumed with an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The void he left behind was vast, and it clawed at her, a constant reminder of the foolishness of her actions. She reached out to David, desperate for a second chance, for a way to undo the damage she had caused. But David, having grown stronger and more self-assured through his healing, had already moved on. He no longer saw her as the woman he once loved, but as a symbol of the fleeting nature of impulsive decisions and the lessons they carry. Their story, once filled with passion and hope, had evolved into a quiet lesson in personal growth and reflection, though each of them learned it in very different ways. For David, it was the realization that true relationships are built on mutual respect, honesty, and an unwavering commitment to each other's well-being. For Emily, it was the painful, undeniable truth that rash decisions can lead to irreversible consequences and that sometimes we must learn to live with the scars of our past. In the twilight of his life, David, reflecting on the years of struggle and healing, made a choice that would forever change the course of his journey. He decided to write a book, an honest, heartfelt account of his pain, his healing, and the profound lessons he had learned along the way. He titled it New Beginnings That Time Doesn't Erase, a tribute to the power of reinvention and the beauty of life's second acts. He dedicated it to the remarkable individuals who had held his hand during his darkest hours, the ones who had shared their strength and wisdom without asking for anything in return. The book resonated deeply with readers, especially older adults who had faced their battles and were searching for hope. It became a lifeline for those struggling with the weight of time and regret. David's story was more than just a memoir, it was a beacon of hope. It was proof that even in the wake of the most soul-crushing disappointments, we are not lost. We can rise from the ashes of our past, wiser, stronger, and more capable of embracing life's inevitable changes. Every fall, every failure, every heartbreak could be transformed into a stepping stone towards something greater. David's journey was a testament to the human spirit's unwavering ability to reinvent itself, to heal, and to embrace the power of second chances. His message was clear: no matter how many times life knocks us down, we always have the strength to rise again. David's journey was a poignant and often heartbreaking exploration of the emotional and practical challenges that older men face when navigating relationships with significant age gaps. It was a journey that shed light on the complexities of seeking connection and fulfillment in the later stages of life, and the profound struggles that come with it. While such relationships can undoubtedly offer moments of wisdom, reflection, and growth, they also bring with them a set of unique, often unspoken obstacles that require an unsettling honesty about one's limitations, desires, and vulnerabilities. David's relationship with Emily stands as a powerful testament to the bittersweet reality that sometimes, in our desperate search for emotional fulfillment, we may overlook the essential elements of compatibility that form the very bedrock of a healthy and enduring partnership. David, driven by a yearning to fill an emotional void left by years of solitude and introspection, believed that Emily could be the answer to his longing for companionship, love, and emotional connection. Yet, in his quest for solace, he unknowingly bypassed the deeper, more meaningful connection they both needed. One rooted in shared values, mutual respect, and a deep understanding of each other's hopes, fears, and dreams. While David poured his heart into the relationship, his vision of emotional fulfillment began to clash with the reality of what they truly had. He wanted to be seen, to feel relevant and loved, but what he and Emily shared, though real, was a fragile, delicate connection that lacked the strength and substance to withstand the pressures of time and circumstance. It was a relationship built more on the pursuit of fleeting desires than on the solid foundation of common ground. For older men like David, there is often an unspoken, insidious pressure to prove that they still possess the energy, vitality, and desirability that once defined their younger selves. It's a desperate need to cling to the image of youth, to push back against the inevitability of aging, and to remind the world, perhaps even themselves, that they are still relevant, still capable of love and passion. This can lead to relationships with younger women, not necessarily born out of genuine emotional connection, but as a means of seeking external validation or a futile attempt to deny the relentless passage of time. David's experience revealed the painful truth that this pursuit of youthful affirmation often leads to emotional turmoil, disappointment, and an overwhelming sense of disillusionment. In his fervor to rekindle the intimacy and physical connection he once knew, he pushed for closeness in ways that were not only misaligned with his reality but also disregarded Emily's unspoken needs and desires. The resulting gap between what David yearned for and what the relationship could realistically provide only widened the emotional distance, creating an aching chasm that neither of them knew how to bridge. Another profound lesson from David's experience lies in the delicate distinction between genuine love and the convenience of emotional escapism. Emily, drawn to the sense of security, stability, and comfort that David provided, found solace in his presence, yet her heart was still tethered to a vision of youth, vitality, and spontaneity. Qualities that David, for all his wisdom and life experience, simply couldn't offer. His quiet strength and measured approach to life paled in comparison to the raw energy and adventurous spirit she craved. Their relationship, though filled with moments of tenderness, was not built on a foundation of shared life goals, dreams, or values. Instead, it was sustained by what each person needed at that particular moment in time, a fleeting attempt to fill the emptiness that they both felt in different ways. This only serves to underscore a crucial, often overlooked truth. Relationships are at their most profound and lasting when they are rooted in mutual respect, shared experiences, and a deep emotional connection, when both partners find in each other not just a temporary refuge, but a companion for life's journey, with all its complexities, challenges, and joys. The excruciating pain David experienced upon uncovering Emily's heart-wrenching betrayal was not just a moment of personal devastation, but a brutal catalyst for profound self-reflection. It was as if the ground beneath him had crumbled away, leaving him stranded in the dark abyss of heartbreak and disbelief. This wasn't merely a blow to his self-esteem, it was a visceral, gut-wrenching reminder of the fragility of trust and the deep vulnerability that comes with loving another person. The betrayal struck him with such force that it threatened to shatter his sense of worth and security, casting long shadows of doubt over every choice he had ever made. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. But amidst the overwhelming anguish, something within David shifted. Rather than surrendering to despair, he chose to confront the agony head-on, allowing it to be the spark that ignited a new beginning. This painful realization became a wake-up call, an urgent invitation to reevaluate his life, his relationships, and his deepest desires. It was not the end, but the beginning of a painful yet necessary journey toward healing and personal growth. In the face of emotional devastation, David found strength. He sought refuge in the arms of loyal friends, reaching out for the emotional support he had long neglected. With every tear shed and every heartfelt conversation, David slowly rebuilt himself. It was in this raw, vulnerable space that he began to rediscover his inner resilience, a resilience he had never truly acknowledged before. David's decision to rebuild his life, to rise from the ashes of his shattered trust, and to choose a path more aligned with his values, was an act of both courage and clarity. He understood now that it was never too late to reassess what truly mattered and to let go of unhealthy attachments to make room for something more genuine and more fulfilling. His journey was a testament to the possibility of transformation. The possibility that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to choose a new direction and create a future that reflects our truest selves. But perhaps the most profound lesson David learned was the importance of self-love and emotional independence. Through the pain, he discovered that true healing comes not from clinging to others, but from reconnecting with the most vital relationship of all, the one he had with himself. By surrounding himself with people who honored his wisdom and experience, David learned to cherish his worth, understanding that his happiness no longer depended on the approval or affection of someone else. It was a quiet, subtle, yet profoundly powerful realization. He was enough, just as he was. David's story is a powerful reminder that no matter how lost we may feel in the aftermath of betrayal or heartbreak, there is always a path forward, always a chance for renewal. His journey of self-renewal proved that it's never too late to grow, change, and reclaim joy. It is in embracing the lessons of our past, learning from them, and then having the audacity to move forward with courage and dignity that we can begin to rebuild our lives with purpose. Through his struggle, David illuminated the truth that the most beautiful chapters of life often come after the hardest trials. Life is a series of opportunities, each one a chance to start anew, and it is up to us to have the strength to seize them when they arise. As we wrap up David's transformative journey, we've seen how one of life's most painful experiences, betrayal, can ultimately become a catalyst for profound self-discovery, growth, and renewal. David's story isn't just about the heartbreak he endured, but about how he chose to rise from the ashes of his pain, rebuild his life with strength, and find joy once again. His path reminds us that no matter how dark or difficult our moments may seem, there is always an opportunity for growth and transformation if we dare to embrace them. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What have you learned from David's story? What is one lesson that has inspired you, and how will you bring it into your own life? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. We're excited to hear how you plan to apply these insights to your journey. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please leave your comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content that empowers and inspires. Thank you for watching, and remember, The best chapters of life are often those that come after the hardest moments. Call to action. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.